Ben Kentish on LBC. Text 84850.
10:35 the time. Back to our conversation about one element of what Donald Trump and administration have been saying today in just a few minutes' time. First, though, let's look ahead to what they're going to be saying tomorrow, the details of which are unclear. But it is, within hours, will be Liberation Day in the United States. At least that's what Trump is calling it, as he prepares to lay out a whole raft of tariffs set to affect countries like ours. What might we hear tomorrow? And how might it affect Britain? Simon Marks joins us, LBC's Washington correspondent. Simon, good to have you with us again tonight. What are you hearing? What might we hear tomorrow?
Well, we know when we're going to hear it, Ben. The president will be making an address in the Rose Garden of the White House at 9 p.m. tomorrow night, London time, sparking off what he says is Liberation Day for the United States, what the White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt described today as one of the most significant moments in modern American history. But what exactly Donald Trump is going to announce remains very unclear. There were reports earlier today in the Washington Post that he could go so far as to announce a 20% across-the-board blanket tariff on all imports to the United States, but on further investigation, it appeared that was just one draft of several drafts that the White House has been considering. And of course, the president has indicated just within the last couple of days that reciprocity will be at the heart of the action that he takes. In other words, if a country has imposed protectionist tariffs on American exports to that country, then President Trump intends to match those tariffs in a reciprocal way. But as to just how sweeping all of this is going to be, and most importantly, of course, for all of us, whether there's going to be any kind of carve-out for the UK from any of the more punitive actions that President Trump is undoubtedly planning to target against the European Union, that remains extremely unclear. We know that Jonathan Reynolds, the business secretary, has been burning the midnight oil, that they've been doing the same at the UK embassy here in the United States, trying to negotiate with the Trump administration, as, of course, have a whole host of other countries. The White House today refused to provide minute-by-minute commentary on how those conversations were going, or even to delineate the number of countries that have been in touch with the White House over the last few hours. So a tremendous air of anxiety, of expectation, fears, of course, among many US consumers about the prospect of spiralling price inflation, about a further meltdown of the financial markets on Wall Street, because that, of course, hits Americans hard if they've got 401k retirement funds, and more than 70 million Americans have those. They're all tied up in the stock market. But the Trump administration seemingly absolutely prepared, they say, for any fallout that arises from this announcement that the president will be making in just under 24 hours.
Simon, elsewhere, I suspect we'll talk lots more about tariffs, you and I, tomorrow.
I'm sure we will.
Extensively. Elsewhere, though, just for now, talk to us about a man called Cory Booker. He is a Democrat senator, and he has been a very, very busy man indeed the last 24 hours or so.
He certainly has. I'm just checking to see that he's still on his feet, and indeed he is. Wow. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, a Democrat who was one of the runners and riders in the race for the party's presidential nomination, at least was thought to be, in the event that Joe Biden had stepped down and allowed a competitive primary to take place. But, of course, that did not occur. He's a younger member of the Democratic Party's caucus on Capitol Hill, and he took to his feet in the US Senate yesterday, 22 hours ago now, saying that he was going to talk publicly about the excesses of the Trump administration, literally until he dropped, until he couldn't continue functioning on the floor of the Senate. This isn't a filibuster, because he's not holding up any votes or anything like that, but it is a dramatic effort by Cory Booker to do a couple of different things. First of all, to speak out publicly from the US Senate, from the floor of the Senate, about all the things that Donald Trump has been doing since Inauguration Day back on January the 20th. Secondly, to show that there are Democrats who still have a pulse, because over the last several weeks since Trump took over, the Democratic leadership has really evaporated in terms of any kind of public presence fighting back against Donald Trump's policies. And also, it's perfectly possible that what Cory Booker is trying to do is fire the starting gun for his own efforts, once again to secure the party's presidential nomination
I did wonder,
in 2028.
I'm glad I wasn't.
So this is a moment where, I don't think you are. I think that's what this is partly about. But it's more broadly about trying to reanimate the Democratic Party, because you can count on the fingers of one hand Democrats in Congress that have exhibited any kind of heartbeat since January the 20th.
And he's been going for literally non-stop for over 20 hours.
Yeah, it's not quite non-stop. So he has the capacity to allow members of the Senate, and of course they would all be Democrats supporting him, to ask him questions. So there is an opportunity for him to yield the floor, which he did just a few minutes ago. He said a few minutes ago that he thinks the end is in sight, that he is running out of gas. He's got to keep going, I think, for 24 hours and 18 minutes in order to break the previous course record. But I think perhaps the cadence that will most be remembered from this speech so far, and it's been a very long speech, is the one where he has conceded that the Democratic Party has made tremendous mistakes in the run-up to Donald Trump's return to the White House and since that return to the White House. So this is Cory Booker trying to say to the American people, I'm here to level with you and be honest. We've let you down, but we really do, at least he says, really want to make a comeback.
Clearly a stunt, but quite an incredible achievement nonetheless. Simon, I'm sure we will speak lots more tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed for now. Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent.